I had spent 20 years carrying the weight of a locked safe. 20 years staring at that metal box in my garage, knowing something of my father's was inside, something he'd wanted to leave me, but I'd never had the guts to open. Every time I passed it, my chest tightened. It felt like opening that safe would mean finally accepting he was gone. And I wasn't ready. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The truth is, I was scared. Scared of finding something that would change everything I thought about him, about me, about the years I'd wasted running from difficult conversations. I'm 68 now, and I finally opened that darn safe. Inside was a yellowed envelope with my name scrawled in his shaky handwriting. And what I read on those pages shattered and rebuilt everything I believed about my life. My father died when I was 48, a sudden heart attack while he was trimming the backyard hedge on a Saturday morning. No warning, no goodbye, no last conversation, just the phone ringing and my mother sobbing on the other end. I was at the office, of course, always at the office. It was a Saturday, but there was an important contract to review, a Monday meeting that needed prep. There was always something more important than being present. During the funeral, I remember looking at that casket and feeling a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the loss, obviously, but relief because now I didn't have to face those conversations we'd always put off. You know, those talks about feelings, about disappointments, about unmet expectations. Conversations families should have but never do because there always seems to be time. It always seems like we can do it later. My dad was an electrician. He worked with his hands, fixed things, solved practical problems. I became a lawyer. I worked with words, with abstractions, with disputes that didn't involve calluses on your hands. He never said it directly, but I always felt he expected me to follow in his footsteps, to learn the trade, to continue the small business he'd built from scratch. Instead, I went to college, moved to the city, wore expensive suits, and forgot where I came from. I visited my parents maybe 3-4 times a year. Christmas, his birthday, my mom's birthday, and some other occasion I couldn't ignore without seeming like a terrible son. The visits were always brief, filled with awkward silences and superficial chatter about the weather, about work, about nothing that really mattered. My dad would ask about my cases. I'd answer vaguely. He'd nod and go back to his newspaper. My mom would try to fill the gaps with food and neighborhood gossip, and I'd stare at my watch, calculating how long I needed to stay to not be rude. After he died, my mom gave me the key to the safe. It was an old safe, one of those heavy ones he kept in his bedroom. She said he'd left clear instructions. Everything inside was for me. Not for her, not for my brother who died young in a motorcycle accident. For me. I took the safe home, put it in the garage, and just couldn't bring myself to open it. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. The key stayed in my drawer, and the safe sat in the garage, gathering dust and guilt. My wife would ask now and then if I wasn't going to see what was inside. I always had an excuse. I was swamped with a tough case. It wasn't the right time. I needed to be emotionally prepared. All lies I told myself. The truth I took 20 years to admit is that I was afraid of finding out my father hated me, that he was disappointed in me, that I had been a letdown. Because deep down, I knew I had been. I knew I'd chosen money over family, success over presence, ambition over love, and I didn't want to see it written in his hand, confirmed definitively and irrevocably, until 3 months ago. I had my own brush with mortality. I fainted in the bathroom at home, hit my head, woke up in the hospital with my daughter crying by my side. The doctors said it was just a pressure spike, nothing serious, but that I needed to slow down. I'm 68 years old, the same age my father was when he died, the same age. And suddenly, it hit me like a punch to the gut. I had the same amount of time he had. And what had I done with that time? Worked, accumulated money, won cases, bought things, and neglected everything that truly mattered. I went home from the hospital, determined to open that safe. It didn't matter what was inside. It didn't matter if it was a letter full of disappointment and anger. I needed to know. I needed to face it. I went down to the garage on a Thursday afternoon, took out the key I'd been holding on to for 2 decades, and finally turned that rusty lock. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the key. Inside the safe were a few things. Some old documents, deeds, property papers for the house where I grew up, a pocket watch that had belonged to my grandfather, a few old photos, yellowed with time, and a manila envelope with my name written in large, shaky letters. I sat on the cold garage floor and opened that envelope. It was 5 pages, handwritten, dated 3 weeks before he died. 3 weeks. Did he know? Did he have some sign, some premonition? I started to read, and tears came before I'd even finished the first page. It wasn't what I expected. It was nothing like I expected. My father started the letter by apologizing. He apologizing to me. He said he was so sorry he never knew how to reach me, how to talk to me, how to show me he was proud. He wrote that he always knew I was different from him, that I had bigger dreams than that small town could offer, and that he never wanted to hold me back, but that it hurt. It hurt a lot to see his son drift away and not know how to stop it without seeming selfish. He wrote that he kept every newspaper clipping where my name appeared, every case I won, every mention in articles about successful lawyers. He had a folder full of these clippings, showed them to his friends at the bar, talked about me with a pride I never saw in person. He wrote that he understood why I visited so little, that I had an important life, responsibilities, that he didn't want to be a burden, but that he missed me, that he wished he'd been more present when I was a child, less hard, more loving, that he wished he'd taught me not just how to fix electrical wires, but also how to fix relationships, how to value people over achievements. And you know what else destroyed me in that letter? That's when he wrote that his biggest regret wasn't not building a bigger business, or not traveling more, or not making more money. His biggest regret was not telling me he loved me, that he was proud, that I didn't need to be different, didn't need to prove anything. He wrote that he was afraid of being too sentimental, of seeming weak, of me thinking less of him if he showed emotion. So he kept it all inside, and I interpreted that silence as disapproval. You're thinking of someone right now, aren't you? Someone you need to have a conversation with but keep putting off. Someone you love but can never seem to say it to. Tell me here in the comments, who is this person in your life? Write it like this. I need to tell, name that, and finish with what you've never said. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be eloquent, but when you put it into words, when you make that commitment, something shifts. And maybe your comment will give someone else the courage to do the same. because we're all carrying these unsaid conversations, these choked back words. So tell me, who do you need to talk to? I read that letter 3 times in a row right there on the garage floor, and with each reading, a layer of guilt and resentment I've been carrying for decades began to dissolve. Not because the guilt wasn't real. It was. I was an absent son, a son who prioritized career over connection. But my dad carried his own guilt, his own burdens, his own insecurities. And we both wasted years in unnecessary silence because neither of us had the courage to be vulnerable first. On the last page of the letter, he made a request, a single request. He wrote, "Don't do with your kids what I did with you. Don't let pride and fear build walls between you. Don't expect them to guess what you feel. Say it, show it, be present, because in the end, nothing else matters besides that. And if you make mistakes, and you will, apologize. Don't let time pass thinking they know, thinking they understand, thinking there will be another chance. There might not be." He ended the letter by saying he loved me, that he always loved me, that I was the pride of his life, and that he just wanted me to be happy, truly happy, not just successful. He signed it with his full name, Antonio Carlos, as if it were an official document. Typical him, even at the end, trying to maintain some emotional control. I sat in that garage until it got dark, holding those pages like they were the most precious things in the world. And they were. They were the bridge I'd always wanted but never knew how to build. Too late for us, but not too late for the lessons that letter carried. You want to know what haunts me the most? It's not what's in the letter. It's everything that isn't. It's the conversations we never had, the laughter we didn't share, the advice he could have given me if I'd just stopped to listen. My father lived 68 years, and how many of those years did I truly know him? 5? 10? The rest was fantasy, assumption, misinterpretation of silences. I built a version of him in my head, a hard, distant, disappointed version, and he did the same with me. Built a version of me who was too busy, too important, too distant to want the company of a retired electrician. And we were both wrong, completely, tragically wrong. After reading that letter, something changed in me. It wasn't an instant magical transformation. It was more like a fog that had been covering my vision for decades finally began to lift. I called my daughter that same night. She lives in another city. She's a graphic designer. She has her busy life just like I did at her age. Our conversations were always quick, superficial, functional. But that night, I called and said something I'd never said before. I miss you. Not the generic, polite, automatic I miss you, but a real I miss you, heavy with meaning and emotion. There was silence on the other end of the line, and then she started to cry. She said she missed me too, that she always had, but she learned early on that I was too busy, too important, that she shouldn't bother me. Exactly what I felt about my dad. The pattern repeating generation after generation like a silent curse. I told her about the letter, about the safe, about 20 years of cowardice. And I made a promise. I'm not going to let any more time pass without telling you that you are the most important thing in my life. Not work, not money, not achievements. You. The following month, she came to visit me. She stayed a whole week. We didn't do anything extraordinary. We had coffee together, we cooked, we watched bad movies, we talked about important things and unimportant things, And they were the best days I'd had in years. Because finally, I was present, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, completely present. I started visiting my mom every week. She's 83 now, and still lives alone in that house where I grew up. She never complained about my absence, never demanded anything, always said she understood. But when I started showing up every Thursday for lunch with her, I saw something change in her eyes, a light I hadn't seen in a long time. She started talking more about my dad, about the life they had together, about their struggles, their joys, their regrets. And for the first time in my life, I truly listened. I really paid attention. I discovered that my dad had depression, something no one talked about back then, something he carried in silence like so many men of his generation. I discovered he had a brother who died young, and that profoundly shaped how he saw life and death. I discovered he wrote poems, hidden in a drawer, terrible but sincere poems about love and loss and hope. I got to know my dad through my mom, 20 years after his death. Better late than never, but still too late. There's a lie we all believe, and it's this lie that destroys entire families without making a sound. The lie is, they know. They know I love them. They know I care. They know I think of them. They don't need the words. They don't need the demonstrations. They don't need my physical presence because there's a tacit understanding, a silent connection that transcends everything. Lie. A cruel and dangerous lie. People don't know. People interpret your absence as disinterest, your silence as indifference, your lack of demonstration as a lack of love. And they build narratives in their heads just like you build narratives in yours. And these narratives are rarely true but become true through repetition, through lack of contestation, through the absence of honest conversations. My friend John died last year. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and brutal. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. John was the father of 2 grown sons who lived far away. During his illness, they came to visit, of course. But you could see in his eyes that it was too late. Too late for the conversations they never had, the trips they never took together, the memories they never made. He told me a week before he died, while we were alone in the hospital room, I always thought there would be time. That sentence haunts me, because it's the sentence we all say, the excuse we all use until time runs out and there's nothing left but regret. You're doing it right now. I know you are. You're reading these words and thinking of someone you love but haven't seen in months, maybe years. You're thinking you should call, visit, send a text. And then you think, tomorrow, next week, when things calm down, when I have more time, when it's more convenient, and the days pass, the weeks pass, the years pass, and suddenly you're at that person's funeral. Or worse, that person is at yours, and all that's left are the unsaid things, the unhugged embraces, the unshared time. Another friend of mine, Carlos, had an alcoholic and absent father. He spent his whole life angry at him, vowing he'd never be like him, that he'd be present for his own kids. And he was, but in such an obsessive, controlling, suffocating way that his kids pulled away as soon as they could. He was physically present, but emotionally absent. He controlled instead of connected. He supervised instead of loved. And now he's alone as the father he despised, but for different reasons. The lesson. Presence isn't just about being in the same physical space. It's about being emotionally available. vulnerable, open. It's about truly listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. It's about valuing who the person is, not who you want them to be. After reading my father's letter, I realized how many times I'd done the same thing to my daughter. How many times I'd been physically present but mentally at the office, worried about deadlines and cases and money. How many times I'd half listened, responded on autopilot, feigned interest while my mind was elsewhere. She deserved more. She deserves more. And I'm trying every day to give that more, not perfectly, because perfection is impossible, and chasing perfection is just another way to avoid vulnerability. But authentically, presently, with all my attention and all my heart. If I could talk to my 30-year-old self, my 40-year-old self, my 50-year-old self, I would say, stop. Stop now. Stop running. Stop accumulating. Stop chasing this hollow idea of success that was sold to you. Your father won't be here forever. Your mother won't be here forever. Your kids will grow up and have their own lives, and you'll look back and realize you missed their most important years. And no amount of money, no title, no professional achievement can fix that. Start having the hard conversations. Ask people how they're really doing and wait for the true answer, not the polite one. Say I love you, not just to your spouse, but to your parents, your siblings, your friends. Say it out loud, even if it feels awkward, even if they laugh, even if they don't know how to respond. Because you don't know, you never know when it will be the last time you have the chance to say it. Start showing up, not just for the big events, not just when it's convenient, but on ordinary days, in the unimportant moments that are actually the most important. Have dinner with your family without looking at your phone. Visit your parents without being in a rush to leave. Call that old friend you haven't spoken to in years. Write that letter. Send that text. Make that call. Today, not tomorrow. Today. Stop waiting for the right moment, because the right moment is now. It always was now. It was never another moment but now. Stop hiding behind work, ambition, exhaustion, excuses. We're all tired. We all have responsibilities. We all have valid reasons to postpone. But none of those reasons will matter when you're holding a letter written 20 years ago. Or worse, when there's no letter at all, just silence and unanswered questions. Start living like you're going to die soon, because you will. We all will. That's the one absolute certainty we have. And when that moment comes, you won't want another hour at the office. You won't want more money in the bank. You'll want more time with the people you love. But there won't be any more time. The cruel irony of life is that you only understand the value of time when it's running out. When you're young, time feels infinite. You waste years in jobs you hate, in toxic relationships, in insignificant worries. You think there will always be a tomorrow to fix, to change, to start over, and in a way there is. But tomorrows are finite. They end. And when they end, there's no getting back the lost days, the wasted moments, the missed opportunities for connection. I'm 68 now, the same age my father was when he died. Statistically, I have maybe 10, 15 years left if I'm lucky. 15 years. Does that sound like a lot? It's not. That's 15 Christmases, 15 birthdays, 15 summers. That's a few hundred weeks, a few thousand days. And every day that passes is one less day I have to correct my mistakes, to build memories, to show the people I love how much they matter. So I wake up every day with this sharp awareness of finitude, and instead of letting it paralyze me with fear, I let it motivate me to action. I call my daughter twice a week, not because I have anything important to say, but because I want to hear her voice. I visit my mother every Thursday. We bring flowers to my father's grave together, and I talk to him, even though I know it's too late, that he can't hear me. I say the words I should have said when he was alive. I apologize. I thank him. I tell him I love him. And my mother holds my hand and cries because she too carries regrets, has also lost time in unnecessary silences. I've reorganized my entire life after that letter. I cut my workload in half. I started turning down cases, even lucrative ones, if they demanded more time than I was willing to give. My colleagues think I'm crazy, that I'm wasting the best years of my career. They don't understand that the best years of my career are already behind me, and I wasted them. Now, I'm trying not to waste the best years of my life. I've started saying no. No to invitations that don't interest me. No to empty social obligations. Not for anything that steals my time without giving anything significant in return. And I started saying yes. Yes to long hikes. Yes to deep conversations. Yes to moments of shared silence that are richer than 1,000 words. Yes to vulnerability, to authenticity, to real connection. I learned that time is the only resource that truly matters, and I was spending mine as if it were infinite. It's not. It never was. And every minute I spend doing something that doesn't matter is a minute I'll never get back. You might be thinking it's too late for you, too, that you've wasted too much time, lost too many people, made too many irreversible mistakes, and maybe that's partly true. I'll never have that conversation with my dad. I'll never be able to say I read his letter and understood that I'm sorry, that I loved him too. But it's not too late for everyone else in my life. It's not too late for my daughter, for my mom, for my friends, for all the connections I can still nurture and deepen. And it's not too late for you either, as long as you're alive, as long as the people you love are alive. There's time. Not a lot, but enough if you start now. My dad's letter ends with a line I reread every week. Don't wait for a letter to understand. Live in a way that needs no post-mortem explanations. Show your love while there's time to show it. Be the person you wish you'd been when you look back. And teach your children, not through words but by example, not to make the same mistakes we did. That's the only way to break the cycle. So here's the unvarnished truth. You're going to die. Your parents will die. Your kids will one day grow old and die. Everyone you love will disappear, and one day you will disappear too. And the only thing that remains, the only thing that truly matters, are the memories you created together, the love you shared, the honest words you exchanged. Everything else, absolutely everything else, is noise. It's distraction, it's illusion. The job that seemed so important, the money you thought you needed, the worries that stole your sleep, all of it will turn to dust. But the hug you gave, the conversation you had, the presence you offered, that remains. Not physically, but in the people you touched, in the lives you transformed simply by being there. I know it's hard to hear this. I know it hurts to acknowledge how much time we've lost, how many opportunities we've let slip away. But if you've made it this far, if you've read to this point, it's because something inside you recognizes the truth in these words. You know, you're postponing important conversations. You know you're neglecting relationships that matter. You know you're living on autopilot, going through the motions, following scripts, but not really living. And you know you need to change. The question is, will you change today, or will you wait another 20 years until you get your own yellowed envelope with revelations that come too late? This channel exists for people like you, for people who are waking up to these truths, who are tired of living half-lives, who want more before it's too late. Subscribe here to hear more real stories from people who have learned hard lessons and are sharing, so you don't have to learn the same painful way. Give this a like if this story resonated with you, if it made you stop and think about your own relationships, your own regrets. And please tell me in the comments, what's the conversation you're postponing? Who do you need to talk to? But keep making excuses. Write it here, put it into words, because sometimes the simple act of acknowledging is the first step toward change. Your story might inspire someone else to find the courage you're still searching for. And remember, that safe stayed locked for 20 years because I was afraid. Don't let your own truths stay locked away for that long. Open them today. Face them today. Live today. Because tomorrow, my friend, tomorrow may never come.